It was the 2000s on Wall Street. The dot-com bubble had just burst. People's 401ks were tanking. Billions were just evaporating thanks to Ponzi schemers like Madoff. And companies with cooked-up balance sheets like Enron were collapsing. But Wall Street was too busy juicing their bonuses to buy mansions in Greenwich to care. And Gordon Gekko kept gambling with the government's blessing.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are two of the very important tools that we have. And there are people I know who are critical of the arrangements that we have. I think it is clear that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are sufficiently secure so they are in no great danger. For once, Congress is getting out ahead of a problem. My primary interest, and I know I share this with others in this committee who care a lot about housing, is to make sure that nothing is done in this reorganization that weakens the ability, indeed the obligation of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to help us.
Barney Frank said everything's fine, and the banks knew Washington was on their side. So banks, they just started chopping up mortgages like sushi rolls and giving homeless crackheads mortgages. No money, no credit. Cocaine problem? No problem. Here's a jumbo loan. This is a true story. If you were a strawberry picker and wanted a beach house, Wells Fargo would buy you that beach house. Banks were at each other's throats over who could loan the most.
Mortgage bonds were amazingly profitable for the big banks. They made billions and billions on their 2% fee they got for selling each of these bonds. But then they started running out of mortgages to put in them. After all, there are only so many homes and so many people with good enough jobs to buy them, right? So the banks started filling these bonds with riskier and riskier mortgages. Thank you, Andrew. That way, they can keep that profit machine churning, right? By the way, these risky mortgages are called subprime. So whenever you hear subprime, think.
Until one day, all that crashed.
This is going to be one of the watershed days in financial markets history.
Lehman, which has 25,000 employees, will be liquidated.
I'm starting to find another job.
This was the day we were afraid to wake up to, the bankruptcy of one major Wall Street investment bank, the shotgun wedding of another.
There is no silver bullet for an economy that experts said today is likely to get worse before it gets better.
Is your money safe? Is your job safe?
Lehman Brothers went belly up and it dominoed. Fannie and Freddie and, all these big banks just holding worthless paper. The housing market crashed and so did the stock market. And instead of putting anybody in prison, Washington bailed them out.
We all hated the bank bailout. It was about as popular as a root canal. But when I ran for president, I promised I wouldn't just do what was popular. I would do what was necessary. I supported the last administration's efforts to create the Financial Rescue Program. And when we took that program over, we made it more transparent and more accountable. And as a result, the markets are now stabilized.
Well, instead of the handcuffs, Wall Street took their golden parachutes and just left the little guy jobless and homeless. So Washington decided they were going to fix the problem so that this never happened again, well, until today.
Stocks plunged after Silicon Valley Bank closed in what's now the second biggest bank collapse in the country's history. For 40 years, Silicon Valley Bank was a go-to for startups. But as clients took out money to stay afloat amid rising interest rates and costs, the bank found itself short on capital. Silicon Valley's bank evoked memories of the 2008 financial crisis. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says she is closely tracking the situation. However, economists say a similar domino effect within the banking industry is unlikely.
And when Kramer says buy, you sell.
SVB Financial, don't yawn. This company's a merchant bank with a deposit base that Wall Street had been mistakenly concerned about. SVB is the old Silicon Valley Bank. Recently bought one of our favorite research firms, Moffett-Nathanson, and it's become less dependent upon private equity and venture capitalist offerings. Wait a second. Those dried up last year. They could come back. Long-term private equity and venture capital, they're not going away. Being the banker to these immense pools of capital has always been a very good business. SVB's nearly 40% rally this year is barely a drop in the bucket.
I didn't even understand any of that. And now there's a run on the banks as angry customers stand on lines that wrap around the block, waiting for a teller to tell them to drain the cash out of their account. So 2 other banks are teetering, regional banks, not the big dogs. So Biden came out today to say he's bailing out the banks again.
Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills. Let me also assure you, we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed on top of all this.
And Biden claims it's not a bailout and no taxpayer money is being used. But he's also the guy that lies all the time. He says that his $3.5 trillion spending bill costs nothing, remember? And the border's secure. How about that? So whatever bankers want, bankers get. That's the history of America. Look at Greg Baker, the CEO of Silicon Valley. Right before his bank went under, he sold $3.6 million in stock. And on Friday, showered his bank employees with bonuses. Way to go, guys. Keep up the good work. So the stupid bank in California didn't see inflation coming. They're about as smart as the Fed chair. So when the Fed chair finally raised rates, the bank got crushed. Well, why weren't they paying attention? Silicon Valley Bank is a woke Biden bank. They were holding seminars on Lesbian Visibility Day and National Pride Month. Now, if you want to hold a Pride Month, that's fine, but you got to be able to chew gum at the same time and walk. So keep an eye on the balance sheet, guys. Silicon Valley Bank made themselves too big to fail when they started pumping money into clean energy. The bank financed solar panels big time. This was Biden's Green New Deal bank. So if this bank fails, so does Biden's green agenda. Biden can't let a woke green bank blow up on his watch. He's got an election to win. He's got money to raise from these Silicon money bankers. And it's ironic because the Biden team printed and spent like crazy and lavished green subsidies on everybody, triggering inflation. So they had to jack up the rates, and then they just melted away the very bank that financed this junk. But Biden, just like the train wreck, just like the border, blamed Trump.
During the Obama-Biden administration, we put in place tough requirements on banks like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, including the Dodd-Frank law to make sure that the crisis we saw in 2008 would not happen again. Unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements.
Unfortunately, Biden wouldn't answer any questions about the second biggest bank failure in American history. He just said somewhere else to be.
See you in California.
Mr. President, what do you know right now about why this happened? And can you assure Americans that there won't be a ripple effect?
Do you expect other banks to fail, Mr. President?
Should all depositors be protected at all banks?
So is this the only bank that Biden's going to bail out? Or is this just one of many? Well, don't worry. The Treasury Secretary, who's covering up Hunter Biden's sketchy bank wires, says everything's fine.
What I do want to do is emphasize that the American banking system is really safe and well capitalized. It's resilient.
Just like inflation's under control, lady, I don't trust her. It's the same people every time. The bankers, the green donors, the Barney Franks, the Joe Bidens, they get rich, they get bonuses, they dump the stocks, everybody gets bailed out, no one goes to prison. They tell us everything's fine. They redefine the word bailout and then tell you it's the greatest economy in American history. Just ignore the bank failures and the record inflation. I don't know about you. I'm not feeling too comfortable right now. Are you?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.